Now, I think that we could all agree here that Sunny Hostin is by far the most insufferable talk show host on The View via ABC/Disney, definitely dethroning and outperforming Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and among others on that show. We all know exactly why. Now, we know that there's a lot of personal and professional problems that Sunny Hostin is indeed involved with right now, especially all the drama surrounding her husband. We'll have a lot more to talk about what's going on there in the coming days. But what's interesting here has a lot more to do with Sunny Hostin and her recent behavior in, of course, the wake of everything else happening via the ABC executives, the Walt Disney Company studio heads over there, the higher-ups, the board of directors, really turning against her. And we all know that Sunny Hostin is really trying to keep it all together on The View. She's trying to stay relevant on that show, especially after all the legal issues and all of the legal battles that she has to get involved in now. Interestingly enough, alright, we know that there's a lot of more problems going on beyond The View, beyond ABC. Let's get into it. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Sunny Hostin is that we already know that much like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, she is desperately trying to expand her career beyond The View. She wants to get back into, movies or whatever it may be, whether it's minor roles or side roles. Whatever she can do to stay somewhat relevant is what she's actually trying to get involved in desperately right now. Now, interestingly enough, another cancellation situation really sparked for Sunny Hostin and how it's not looking good for her time within Hollywood, within the film industry, and let's get into the details. Now, with the woke media and all of Hollywood doubling down on their agenda, in many cases, the majority of the public continues to push back against their ideology. Now, one major development going on now involves more to do with Sunny Hostin of The View, and more drama beginning to escalate now. It turns out that much like Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg, Sunny has been trying to expand her career as tensions grow from the ABC and Disney executives, planning to replace Sunny Hostin. It turns out that Sunny was recently canceled in a very unexpected way from Universal Pictures and 87 North, which by the way is another studio, for a new comedy film that is called Love Hurts. Now, this film reportedly already included a scene where Sunny Hostin was going to play herself in this upcoming comedy film, set for release on February 7th. It turns out that after all the backlash and legal issues that she has been involved in over at ABC/Disney and from other organizations, that Universal decided to cancel Sunny Hostin's appearance from the Love Hurts film. Her career and her scene, basically, was best described to be a 5-minute sequence in which actor Ke-Huy Kwan's character meets Sunny Hostin inside of the ABC studio in the movie and has a comedic chat with Hostin. She also had another scene where she appears on live television in front of a character eating in a restaurant just before an action scene breaks out. Now, these two scenes that Sunny Hostin filmed are now getting scrapped and canceled from the final cut of the comedy film by Universal and 87 North. However, this decision by its CEO and executives over at Universal were not just limited to her legal issues and her behavior and lies spewed on The View, but Hostin was also demanding that she would be involved in other projects at Universal as part of a contract deal, and she was being overly persistent with that to the point that she was becoming a nuisance, essentially, for the studio executives. Now, guys, let me just say one thing about this. Now, it's one thing to actually be involved in an action comedy film when it's a small role, but it's another thing to actually overly demand to be involved in other projects with Universal/87 North. Now, we already know that Sunny Hostin has done this before in the past, where she plays herself on a television screen in front of characters. I mean, we've seen this many times by Jimmy Kimmel, Jay Leno, Conan O'Brien. They've been involved in movies. It's kind of like that, right? Where they are basically in this world playing themselves on television in front of actual fictional characters. So this is where it gets interesting, is that they were actually supposed to have a scene where it was going to take place inside of ABC Studios, inside of that actual set for The View, where Ke-Huy Kwan, you guys may know him from Indiana Jones, The Temple of Doom, or The Goonies. Interestingly enough, her scenes were reportedly shot back in August of 2024, just before all the drama broke out over at ABC/Disney and the entire woke media turning on her to a degree. Now, after her recent cancellation at Universal, this is now also limiting her ability to expand her career properly beyond The View as a host. This is very similar to both Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, who are also in panic as the ratings disaster continues for The View, and how Sunny is the major contributor to the overall ratings decline. Now, to make matters worse for Sunny's sake is that Universal is also refusing to provide her scenes in the form of deleted scenes for this upcoming comedy action film once it hits streaming and/or digital. So that's interesting, because not only did they cancel her scene from the final cut for the theatrical release, they are also refusing to debut those scenes on Blu-ray, streaming, or any kind of digital release out there. They don't want those scenes to see the light of day for Sunny Hostin. And she's having a very big time, a very big deal, actual dealing with the overall situation. Now, we already know that Sunny Hostin is not taking that very well. She's creating a bigger issue than it needs to be. If I were her, I would just leave this be, leave it behind, and just call it quits. But she can't let things go, right? That's typical Sunny Hostin. So, once again, this is another, situation where we have a talk show host getting involved in a movie. It's a very minor role, 5 minutes and change, where she was supposed to be involved in this Love Hurts movie. Honestly, who's gonna watch this thing with, Sunny Hostin anyway? Nobody cares. But Sunny is reportedly demanding Universal to provide the scenes that she had shot for Universal somehow on digital or streaming, and is reportedly getting involved in argumentative conversations with the Universal CEO over the last-minute decision. Now, Sunny's name will also be removed, get this, from the credits of the film, Love Hurts, and a quick re-edit of this movie is now being done in a last-minute move to actually reshape the movie, because it did create a slight ripple effect in the pacing once her scenes were actually cancelled. So that's interesting. They have a couple of weeks to kind of do some fine-tuning for this movie before it actually releases on February 7th. Now, look, it's not a super major movie. I mean, we'll be all honest about that. This is just a regular popcorn flick, comedy action movie coming out on the 7th of February, starring Ke-Huy Quan. But Sunny Hostin was supposed to have a 5.5 minute, to be very specific, 5.5 minute scene to basically play herself and to kind of use that as a Kickstarter to get more involved in cameos or side roles in various action comedy films or romantic comedy movies, etc., etc. So again, this is a domino effect for Sunny Hostin. I think that she, much like Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar, they are trying to go back to their roots, whether it's stand-up comedy or, comedic roles that are either small or big. They actually had a history of doing that. Sunny Hostin, not so much. She's trying to get that started, basically, of what Whoopi and Joy did decades ago. So I would like to hear what everyone has to say about the Sunny Hostin cancellation situation over at Universal on 87 North. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.